Roxo Media House. From the Flying T studio at Roxo Media House, this is Frogs Today, featuring college football analyst Parker Fleming. And we'll chat with head basketball coach Jamie Dixon, plus Southwest Conference historian Alan Burton. And now, here's your host, the voice of the Frogs, Brian Estridge.
Thursday edition of Frogs Today starts right now from the Flying T Club studios. Welcome in. Man, we got a great lineup for you in this one. Coming up a little bit later on, the two Jamies get together. Jamie Plunkett is going to be with Jamie Dixon, the head basketball coach. They're at Schollmeyer Arena right now. They're getting ready for an Nabc clinic that'll happen this weekend. That's the National Association of Basketball Coaches. I got it. They're going to be in Fort Worth this weekend, and Jamie's going to be alongside visiting with Coach Dixon, give us some perspective on what that means for this TCU basketball program. I think they might be scrimmaging today, too, so we might get a little insight into that as well. Alan Burton's going to join us later on. He's a Southwest Conference historian. You're going to want to stick around for this conversation. If you're a fan of the old Southwest Conference, stick around because this is going to be a great conversation with Alan. That's coming up later on. But right now, class of 2013. One of TCU's finest. I'm so excited about talking to this guy. Parker Fleming joins us right now from Stats War. Parker, good to see your face, man. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me on. Nice to be here virtually, as it were, and chat a little bit.
All right, let's start with this. Let's get the 35,000-foot view of what Stats War is. Give me some idea.
Yeah, so Stats War is my Twitter account that was born out of just being bored in math classes and wanting to write about football instead of math. And Jamie Plunkett was over at Frogs of War. Him and Melissa Triebwasser are both friends of mine. And they, Jamie and I at a tailgate one day were talking about football and stats. And he was like, dude, you need to be writing some of this down. Like, come write for me. So wrote for him. Continue to use some of that math and computer programming skills I have to build out some football models and some advanced stats. And now it's turned into, I post advanced stats previews for every games. I host a little website, cfb-graphs.com, where I have some leaderboards from advanced stats I think are important. Just kind of creating tools that are helpful to guide people to be better consumers of football. What do I know to watch for? What confirms my eye test? What challenges my preconceived notions? I just like to put that in graphical form.
I love this, man. There's some great data that's out there. I'll be honest with you. I feel like at times, Parker, that I can be inundated with analytics, that I could drown in them. How do I fight through all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm a really big fan of like no film without data and no data without film. So I think people dive, very specifically kind of both ways and don't have a good balance there. I think it's important with the data to make sure you kind of know what you're looking for. A lot of my stuff is very simple, right? Teams run the ball, they pass the ball. They choose to do that differently. The efficiency there matters, and that really determines what a matchup's going to be like. And so with a very solid question in your head, then you can go look for data as opposed to, just drinking from the fire hose of someone has numbers, so I'm just going to try and put all these in my brain. Kind of start with a question and say, well, I'm interested. How well does TCU do at running the ball? And when do they choose to run it? Well, that's an interesting question. Then you can kind of go to some analytics and say, okay, what do these advanced numbers say about that?
All right, some this data that you're churning out, I got to believe that it would be useful for coaches and for programs, for teams. Are they knocking on your door?
Yes, I'll be a little bit coy and a little bit vague here. I talk to college football coaches regularly, and some of them look at my previews, ask me for questions. At different times, I've been involved in game planning meetings where they're asking and challenging questions. In the off season, when coaches are a little bit bored, I've been on phone calls where coaches are arguing with each other and their staff about when they should go for two on fourth down or when they should kick a field goal. And so to varying degrees, coaches are very hungry for this. And honestly, a lot of it is helping them kind of open the files. You know, PFF Ultimate, for example, has a pretty good service where they give you the spreadsheet, and all these football coaches are smart guys, but they don't have any background in data analytics. And they say, man, I can't even open this million observation spreadsheet, let alone like find the variables I want. I can't even just open this. So there's some of that like data infrastructure I help them with too. And then, you know, a lot more on field kind of perspective and conversations with the data.
That sounds just like the conversations that we have here at Frogs Today with Jamie and with Coach Bowden. We're kind of looking at it. We're like, I can't understand this. You know, so that's why we turn to Parker for answers on this. All right. So some of this is subscription based, I'm assuming, right?
Yes. So right now I put all of my previews on Twitter. You can tip me. I have a little buy me a coffee site, and then the CFB Graphs website. All of that is free and open right now. In the process of looking for like a 2023 launch for kind of a KenPom style site that's a little bit more, you know, the details are behind the paywall. It's a little more structured, so I can devote a little more time to it. But for now, open, just want people to have the tools that I think are useful. And people have been very generous about tipping, and, you know, hey, saying, hey, I like this graph. Here's, you know, a couple coffees or whatever it is. So
all right. I've got the graph in front of me right here for this week.
Awesome.
So I
love that.
I've got this, you know, but I shrink it down so I look like Mike Leach calling plays, you know, off the back of a gas receipt here. You know, I got to shrink it down for me here. All right. So real quick, I want to explain to folks what the EPA is. You got to do that for me. The estimated.
Yes, okay, I've got
go.
Really good elevator pitch for it. Expected points added, right?
Gotcha.
Okay. So yards per play is a stat people use all the time, right, Brian?
8.9. That's TCU's yards per play.
TCU, best in the FBS.
Yes,
That's a little bit confusing though, because 3 yards on 1st and 10 is bad, right?
Okay.
But 3 yards on 3rd and 3 is good. And so EPA kind of solves that problem that we get some noise in yards per play. And it says based on the down, distance, and yard line, what is the average point value of this play? So it translates yards to points in context. So we're not penalizing you for getting 3 yards on 3rd and 3. We're actually benefiting you for increasing your value or increasing the probability you're going to score. So all it does is takes yards to points in context, attaches a point value to each play, and helps us understand efficiency with a little bit more information than yards per play.
Then you come up with what you think is going to be the projected points for that matchup, for that game.
Yeah, so historical data trained, you know, I have my own flavor of expected points added model. I did not come up with the concept. It's been around for a really long time. Back in, you know, the book, The Hidden Game of Football, they attached a point value to each yard line. What I've done is just, you know, historical regression saying college football teams generally, when they have the ball at this yard line with this down and this distance, they score, you know, X% of the time. So entirely based on historical data, and then I can map it forward and project it to current data. And that lets me kind of calculate after each game, all right, what was the expected point value of each play? How much did you improve your value after every play?
All right. So I'm looking at the data right now, and you think that this Saturday, TCU wins 32-24. Am I right?
Yes, this projection says historically a team with TCU stat profile and a team with Kansas's stat profile, if we're going with a blind resume evaluation, a team like TCU would win by about 8 points, projected about 32-24.
Do you take into account the opponent? Like, you know, do you take into account that, you know, Kansas hasn't played any powerhouses per se?
Yeah, so this model does 2 things that I think are really beneficial. One, takes into account opponent. One of that is some of that's based on preseason priors, which goes back to coaching continuity, your roster development, your historical talent. But then it also takes into account run pass selection. A lot of times we see, Brian, bad teams in college football running the ball well against other bad teams, and their efficiency metrics get inflated, right?
Yes.
I account for run pass selections. I weight passing a little bit, passing efficiency a little bit more. And so when you account for the opponent adjustment in the projections, that's gonna reflect both kind of your opponent's run pass tendencies and how well you did against those, and the overall quality of opponent.
Parker, do you have another 2 hours? I mean, we could sit here, literally. I mean, I could talk this with you for 2 hours. This is fascinating.
Yeah, we could go down rabbit holes. Yeah,
oh, believe me, I know. I'm going to leave you with one. I'm going to put you on the spot here because, I know you. I know how good you are, and you're the best. And Jamie reminds us of that every week. But I got a question for you. The amount of time that Kansas runs versus pass, all right, what's that percentage?
Okay, so the way I look at this, right, again, is I can't ever give you a one-word answer. You know me.
I know.
The way I look at this is if you face 3rd and 3 a lot, you're going to run a lot because 3rd and 3 is kind of a situation where you run. So I look at rush rate over expected. What that does is says, again, down distance and yard line, really just down in distance and in college football score margin, because when teams are up big, they run more.
Yeah.
And I say, how often are you rushing relative to the average team? So in terms of relative rush rate over expected, Kansas is rushing 60.5% more than the average team. That's 93rd slowest. So fast being most pass heavy, slow being most rush heavy. That's the 93rd slowest team in the nation. They are rushing a whole lot. A lot of that is Jalen Daniels. Some of that is scrambles, but they're rushing a lot more than the average team. And
they want to slow the game down. They'll huddle up. They want to try to reduce the number of possessions because overall they run it about 63% of the time, I think. Just if you looked at straight up run pass ratio, right? So again, Parker, we could go down a rabbit hole here. We'd be here all day, brother. Hey, I want to thank you for the time. I want to see more of you at Frogs Today, man. Let's have a longer conversation about that off air at some point. But I think your stuff is outstanding. I wanted to brag on you as a TCU alum, class of 2013, and the work that you're doing. All right, give everybody the website one more time that folks can go to, and the Twitter handle and all that.
Yeah, follow me. Thank you so much for that, Brian. Follow me on Twitter at StatsOWar, and the website is just a leaderboard of some advanced stats is cfb-graphs.com, like the hyphen in the middle, cfb-graphs.com.
I love it, man. cfb-graphs.com. Parker, thanks for the time today, brother. I really do appreciate it, man. We'll talk again.
Anytime. Enjoyed it too.
All right, there he goes. Parker Fleming, class of 2013. Basketball's next with his former buddy there in college, Jamie Plunkett's alongside with Jamie Dixon next when we continue with Frogs Today here on Thursday.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Urban Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best-tasting, sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPI drinks.com. Live happy. Be happy. Drink happy.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Sights and sounds from today's men's practice. TCU basketball just around the corner. A little scrimmage action today. As a matter of fact, Coach Jamie Dixon standing by with our own Jamie Plunkett at Schollmeyer Arena right now.
Thanks, Brian. Standing here on the court at Schollmeyer Arena with TCU men's basketball coach Jamie Dixon. Coach, there's a unique event coming into town this week. It's a coaching clinic for the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Could you tell me a little bit about that event and how it got started?
Yeah, I mean, clinic seems like a natural for the Nabc, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Nike kind of ran these clinics in the fall and the spring. As they were kind of pulling away from it, we kind of jumped in there with them and kind of took them over. So did that for the first couple of years, then decided, hey, maybe we, the guys that are on the board, the directors, have it at their places, since we seem to be a little bit more involved, more engaged, and I think it was a good opportunity for us. So we took it. West Lafayette, Purdue, they took one up there, and so there's like 3 or 4 of them in the spring, 3 or 4 of them in the fall, and I think it's a good start for us. We had one a couple of years back. I think we had Ben Howland, John Calipari when I first got here. But this is not an ideal weekend with it being fall weekend, fall break weekend for us, but it's the one that worked and the one we were able to do, and so we're going from there.
So you have a pretty unique relationship with the NABC. You've served as its president for a couple of years now. Tell me, what compelled you to step into a leadership role with the NABC?
I don't know. I was asked to do it, really, and then the NCAA asked me to do one, and they asked me to do a rules committee, ethics committee, I think it was called, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then I think as long as you're still on that board and you keep doing, you don't quit and you don't get fired, which takes out a lot of guys. That's why I kind of moved up to president, as you said, and then they asked me to do it 2 years because of the changes, hiring Craig Robinson. So, but still on the board. I don't know why. I just got asked to do it. It's early on in my career as a head coach, and and certainly I became the president during the people could say blame me for COVID, transfer portal, and the NIL, because they all came into play while I was the president. But we really don't have a lot of power. We throw out a lot of opinions. We try to give them a feel of what the coaches think, what players think, basketball. But the reality is, as an organization, I think more with Craig, we're starting to get a little bit more a seat at the table, if you will. But it's we're run by the NCAA, and we're run in a unique situation where we have women's college basketball, we have Division I, Division II, Division III, but yet we know that all the revenue that the NCAA has comes from the men's basketball tournament. So it's a unique situation. There's no business like college basketball, college athletics for that matter, and it's just it's funny. Football gets in mind. We pay to run football is what I was read the other day. All the NCAA that regulates football, that's all basketball money that's paid to regulate it.
Wow.
So it just doesn't kind of quite make sense, but it is the world we live in. But a lot of good things are coming of it. I mean. College basketball has provided a lot of opportunities for women's sports and other sports for that matter too, and I think that's what's great. I think it's I certainly don't want to get into a situation here going forward where we lose sports as this NIL and as other things occur, realignment. That's my fear, that you lose other sports, and I've never been in a place where we've lost sports, and that's something I don't want to be a part of.
So when you talk about having a bigger seat at the table, a little bit more voice with the NABC, is that one of the goals of the NABC, is to protect some of the other things that are happening across the NCAA?
It's been talked about. Yeah, it's been talked about. I mean, it's been discussed, but we're coaches, and we want to control everything, and that's not how it works. And we don't understand that there's other sports, and there's Title IX, and I think I have a little better grasp or appreciation that, probably because of my sister Maggie and her coaching, and so I understand the economics of it. I understand the Title IX and what it means, and I understand the opportunities it's given a lot of different people. So It's just we're able to do some things with recruiting, and Brad Stevens and I actually, the model that we have for recruiting was, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. Brad and I were really the two that kind of made the change. We got our spring weekends back and cut down summer days so we could work out with our guys in the summer, and so that was an improvement for the game. And so we have had some say in some things, and we've had some improvements because of it.
You did mention, it's a group of coaches, and so obviously coaching and being on the court here and being with your guys is the number one priority. As we're, closing in, we're less than a month now from the start of TCU's basketball season. How are you feeling about the program and where it is right now?
Well, obviously, I mean, there's excitement, and obviously, it's been a nice. The run obviously speaks for itself, and what we've done. We knew what we did. We're taking on when we got here, but I didn't make an excuse. I said to win now, and there's obviously been there's a history that hasn't been great, and when I played it the last time we won an NCAA game until this team, it says a lot. So speaks to my age as well as other things, but. It's just it's been fun. It's great to come back to a place that gave you a chance, and I'm giving them everything I've got to make this the best thing possible. And we have a great group of guys that are working hard, and obviously the rankings and all the things that come with it, and last year's run. And but we can do. There's really no limits to what we can do. I believe that in any program. We may have a small arena, we may have a smaller school, we may have a smaller budget, but those things don't matter. Get the right guys and put them out there and get them to play together, and that's what I think is the most important thing.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you so much for your time.
Got it.
Brian, back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Jamie Plunkett there with the head coach, Jamie Dixon. A little insight into the TCU men's basketball program. Don't forget Schollmeyer Live right around the corner. October 21, we'll get to find out more about these two basketball teams, both the men and women at TCU. Coming up, Alan Burton's going to join us, Southwest Conference historian. You're going to like this conversation. It happens next on Frogs Today.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com. Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU. Both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime, and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Frogs Today continues here on the Thursday. Honored to have Alan Burton with us right now. He's got a new book out. As a matter of fact, he sent me a copy of it, and I'm very thankful. Thank you, Alan, for doing this. Go to the games with Humble. It was the Humble Radio Network back in the day of the Southwest Conference, and everyone knew the Humble Radio Network. And, boy, this was before the days of all games being on television. Alan, this was a big deal back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brian, it really was. Really, that was the only way you could follow your team back then, because as you said, there were very limited television games. And so really, you pretty much followed your team by listening to the game on radio, and then you read the daily newspaper every day. Those were your 2 avenues for information. That was about it.
And back then, Humble did it differently than other places around the country, right? In that teams didn't necessarily have a designated voice who followed with them everywhere, right? They moved guys around team to team at times.
Yeah, it was a very unique operation. The most famous announcer was a gentleman named Kern Tips. And he's a legendary announcer. He was just the Walter Cronkite of sports broadcasting back in that era. And they did have, in later years, they had sort of a game of the week concept. But most of the time, they just randomly sent announcers to different games. And the theory was they didn't want any favoritism. They wanted it to be totally objective. And when you stop and think about it, that makes sense. You had one sponsor being Humble, and they were very conscious about not favoring one team or another. And so they were conscious about offending their customers if one announcer, tended to favor another team. So they're very, very careful of trying to be as objective as possible.
Yeah, so you may have Jack Dale, who many people associated with Texas Tech for years. You may have him calling a TCU game, and you may have Frank Fallon, who was associated with Baylor, calling a Texas game. It would move around like that, right?
Exactly.
All right, so give me some sense, Alan, of the production value and the amount of time and effort that went into these games, because that's what kind of stands out too, is they took this very seriously.
They did, and of course they didn't have the technology that we have today,
right.
And so it was quite an operation. I know a gentleman named Connie Alexander, who was probably the biggest play-by-play name after Kern Tips. He spent an inordinate amount of time doing research on the teams. He would get to the game site the day before the game, interview the coaches, even the officials sometimes. And he had elaborate spotting system that he developed. And so they took it very, very seriously. And the other thing that was different back then, in addition to them being objective play-by-play, the analyst or the color person really wasn't. That person was just there to sort of lead into the commercials. They didn't really provide analysis like we do today.
Right. It was all about the play-by-play announcer back then, right?
Right.
You in the book also, you got a couple of different things. You've got some scripts that were there that were part of the broadcast, but you also have a complete list of everyone who was part of this. This had to take some time on your part.
It really did. Thank goodness for the internet. Where was the internet when I was in high school doing a research paper? I sure could have used it, but it was invaluable. And it's just amazing on the internet what you could find. And most of that I found just on old newspapers. They ran like a weekly article, and here's the broadcasting crew at this game. So it took a lot of time, but it's also just a lot of fun.
Does the Texas Sports Hall of Fame down in Waco, do they have pretty good archives of any of these broadcasts, or are these games, are they archived anywhere?
I think they're pretty rare. I was able to actually get a couple of copies that I bought on the internet and actually listen to them just to sort of go back and get a feel for those games. I actually grew up in North Texas in the 60s.
Yep.
And so I did listen to a lot of the games, during that time, but it brought back a lot of memories just listening, to that era.
Alan, one of my treasured possessions, and I wish I'd have brought it in with me today, was I have a coin set that has a coin from each one of the Southwest Conference teams that was sponsored by the radio networks back in the day. That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was another unique thing for back during that time period. They were pretty advanced as far as marketing the games. They had giveaways at their humble service stations, like you mentioned, the coins. They had like schedule stickers, decals. And so they were, for their time, they were pretty advanced as far as marketing the games.
Well, I'm curious, and I wonder if you ever ran across this. What did Humble pay as the sole sponsor of that? Do you have any idea?
I don't, but I know it wasn't a lot, because that was one of the reasons that led to its demise. Is in the mid 70s, when money was starting to become more of an issue in college athletics. Other companies were interested in bidding, and it got to a bidding war actually.
Yeah.
And I think Mutual Radio actually won the first bid after Humble went away.
I remember that. All right, the book is called Go to the Games with Humble, Kern Tips in the Golden Age of Southwest Conference Radio by my friend Alan Burton here. Pick it up. You can find this everywhere, I'm assuming?
Yeah, basically Amazon, Barnes & Noble online, your best bets.
All right, good deal. Alan, thank you very much for sharing this book with me, and thank you for spending some time with us here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's Alan Burton joining us. More to come on Frogs today after this timeout.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best-tasting, sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPIdrinks.com. Live happy, be happy, drink happy.
Thanks to Alan Burton for joining us there, the historian. Appreciate the time there on the Southwest Conference. We could talk about that all day long. Hey, coming up tomorrow, Football Intensive Friday. Max Nocky, the former TCU quarterback, is going to join us. Brian Haney, the voice of the Kansas Jayhawks, will get a scouting report on the 19th ranked Kansas Jayhawks, who the Frogs face at 11 o'clock on Saturday, plus our roundtable of experts to come tomorrow. A couple of things we need to make note of. The merch store is open at Frogs Today. Yeah, if you want some Frogs Today merchandise, go to frogstoday.com. Click on the merch store, and you'll find some great hats, golf shirts, T-shirts there, all with the Frogs Today logo on those. Check those out at frogstoday.com. Don't forget now, we need you to like us, we need you to comment on us, and we need you to subscribe, whether it be at frogstoday.com or on our YouTube page. We need you to be part of our family here at Frogs Today. All right. Looking forward to tomorrow's show, Football Intensive Friday. Until then, have yourself a great Thursday.
Frogs Today is brought to you by the Flying Tea Club, supporting TCU student athletes, and by Richard's Rainwater. Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Frogs Today is a production of Roxo Media House.
Roxo Media House.